Welcome, welcome, welcome to another episode of Conversations with Coach La. I am super excited to be here with everyone. As you guys know, every single week, I'm super excited, always excited to be here on Sunday evening, spreading good vibes on the Urban Heat 98.1 FM. You guys know that we are radio with a purpose and we're impacting the communities all around Boston and beyond. You know what you need to do. You need to go check us out on iHeartRadio. If you haven't done so already, go download that iHeartRadio app. You can always listen to us 24/7 on iHeartRadio. We're also streaming live tonight on Facebook and also YouTube. So shout out to everyone who is tuned in through social media platforms. And you can also go check out our website, Heat 98 point actually take the point out. I'm always saying the point. You don't really need the point, right? It's heat981fm.com. It's a habit, y'all. What can I say? Your favorite around the way therapist is here in Boston. It's a cold night. We had a little bit of snow flurries, but I'm here. I made it in. It's nice and warm in the studio. So I am excited about tonight's guest. And you guys know that this episode tonight is about men. It's dedicated to men needing self-care. So men need self-care too. Yes, men have feelings. Yes, men communicate their feelings. Yes, men cry, all of that good stuff. So this is inspired by my dad. As you guys know, going on now 4 years ago, he passed away. And we used to always talk about men taking care of themselves, especially when it came down to their mental health and their physical health. So I said, why not take one of the episodes every month and dedicate it to men? So tonight, I have a very special guest with me. He used to be a Bostonian. He also lived in Brooklyn, right? But he currently lives in Kansas. One of the places I've always wanted to go. I wanted to have my red slippers and figured, maybe I would go to a special place. So who is Daz-One? Well, we know he's from Brooklyn, New York, as I just told you. Did you also know that he is a former MC and has hosted some of Boston's longest running events? I actually didn't know that. He's also known as being an actively DJing. So he's a real deal for 23 years. That's a long time. That's about half of our lives. But some of the other things that you may not know, which most of us don't know because we kind of judge a book by its cover, we never know we all got a story to tell. So he's also a survivor of a troubled childhood. He was once homeless at 20 years old, and he has been a champion in so many ways. And we're going to hear a little bit more about the work he's doing in Kansas, which I also didn't know about until today. But if you want to know more about Daz-One, why don't we just ask him? So let's bring Daz-One. What's going on, my friend?
You have footage of me rapping. You know this, right?
Huh?
You have footage of me rapping. You know this, right?
I do have footage of you rapping.
The KRS-One show. Remember that?
And that
Yes.
was the first time I learned that you were an MC. And I think I was shocked because I was in the front and you
Yeah.
said, I'm gonna do something I haven't done in a long time. And you started to spit. And I was like,
Yeah.
what?
Yep.
We find
Yep.
out Daz is an MC.
Yep.
So
Yep.
yes. That was a really fun night. That was
Yeah.
a really fun night. I got some great pictures from that night as well. Shout out to all of our people. We got people already saying hello and tuned in. What's going on?
Hello, everybody.
Blackbird, what's going on? Arlene, Lisa Ray. Thank you guys for tuning in. Oh, my favorites on here, Regina the Mindfulnista, Fawnessa. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for the hearts too. You guys can also give the Urban Heat stars if you're feeling me. That keeps the radio station going. That's how we pay the bills. Not the only way we pay the bills, but
One
stars.
of the ways.
It's one of the ways. So hearts and stars. You guys also know my love language is words of affirmation. So the hearts make me feel like you're saying I love you. So hit the heart button multiple times and shout out to all of my Urban Heat family that's also tuned in from all of the different ways that they could be tuned in. So, but tonight's episode is dear to both of our hearts, right? Because we're gonna chop it up about some stuff that maybe you never really talk to people about, which is your feelings, right? And how it feels to be a Black man in America, living his best life, looking for love, practicing self-care, advocating for oneself, all of that good stuff. So
Oh
everyone
yeah.
else has to answer this question. And I asked them this question. What does therapy mean to you?
Uh, hmm. Good question. It's like a refresh. It means refresh.
Mhm.
Like I haven't done a lot of sessions with people because I have a trust issue with people. But once you break past that and I'm comfortable enough to open up, I feel like whenever I leave, I feel refreshed. So yeah, that's the word I'll use, refresh.
That sounds like, I tell people like I'm an advocate for writing, right? So journaling, poetry, emceeing, all
Right.
that to me is a reflection of us letting out our feelings.
Hmm.
And I've often told my clients that when you get ready to sit down to write, it's like a mental massage for your brain,
Yeah.
so it's a release. So I definitely can connect with you in saying it's a reset, a refresh, right?
Back in my MC days, that's what those rhymes were, therapy for me.
Mhm.
So yeah.
See? See, I tell people music in itself, the lyrics have always been what got me. Like I love the
Yeah.
beat, but when you really got a song that you heard the lyrics and the lyrics spoke to you, it's a whole different type of experience.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Totally
Yep.
different experience when you was like, oh man, listen to these lyrics and you had to run it back a few times, or you actually took time to memorize the lyrics. That
Hmm.
was
Yep.
definitely some therapy for
Oh yeah. To this
before
day.
before we knew what therapy was, because
Right.
as a community, and maybe you can, chime in on this, we're often not told to go to therapy. At least when I was growing up, it wasn't like, okay, we're gonna go get you a therapist or we're gonna go get you some help. It was like, yeah, go to your room, be quiet, kind of thing. It wasn't about we gonna go tell no. And first of all, you didn't tell your business. So going to
Yeah.
a therapist was telling house business, and you couldn't do that. So often we were left to our music and to our diaries back then. We didn't call them journals, we called them diaries. Uh,
Right.
I don't know. Did you have a diary?
I still write in one to this very day.
I never knew if dudes had diaries.
I've had a diary since 19 years old.
Okay. All right. Well,
Yeah.
I learned something new today. A lot of guys didn't have diaries. At least they didn't admit to it.
Oh, I don't mind admitting that because no one gets to hear those thoughts or read them except me. So,
So I had my male friends called it. They had it. They was in their notebook. It wasn't their diary. They said they had a notebook or their pad, but they never called it a diary.
well, I definitely call it a diary, a journal, just excerpts of my life, whatever that day was. I just write about it.
I know
That's it.
that's right.
Yep.
So therapy for you is a refresh.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
have you had to, or have you ever had a therapist?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Now did I like them? No. But I did. It's funny when we speak in the therapist because I'm from the old school. Back then, they were called social workers. They weren't even called therapists. They were called social workers. And I'm like, how's this person going to socially work with me? He don't come from the same place I come from. He never grew up in the environments I grew up in. So how are you going to tell me about me when you've never lived it? But I went through it anyway.
What's so interesting is that technically and professionally, my title is a licensed independent clinical social worker.
Right. Right.
Right?
I get, and you do it so well. Round of
Yes.
applause. He
And
does it so well.
And then,
Absolutely.
now we say we're psychotherapists and there's just like other roles, but that's my official title. So
Right.
yeah, okay.
Right.
So you had a male therapist. Was he black or white?
He was white. The first one I ever had was white. I was in high school at the time. I was a sophomore in high school. Yep.
So you had a school counselor almost.
No, he wasn't a school counselor. He was someone that was brought in from somewhere in Massachusetts to come in and talk to me. This was a couple of years after my father passed away, and he was just trying to. They just brought him in for whatever reason, but it didn't really work too well.
Mm. And and partly because you didn't see yourself in him and he didn't know where you
No,
came from, so you couldn't connect. That's a
no,
really important factor, and partially, probably 100% why my practice is full, because people want to have someone who looks like them or can at least connect to their lived experience. So it's a good thing. One of the reasons why
right,
I got into this field was to debunk the myths about what a therapist looked like or what therapy felt like, and all of that. So it's working well. It's working well. Another reason why I'm doing this show, right, is to open up, let you see I'm a real person. Hi, y'all. I technically, no, I shouldn't say technically. I truly do kind of embrace the whole your favorite around the way therapist mantra. It sort of just grew on me.
I said this to you off air many times. We've had conversations. I feel what you're doing is needed in radio, not only for entertainment purposes, if you want to say that, but you're providing something that people can relate to and gravitate towards to, and not feel alone when they hear somebody else going through the same thing that they may be going through. So that's the benefits of doing something like this. So again, kudos to you and to the Urban Heat for allowing this to happen.
Thank
Amen.
you. Thank you. I appreciate, the feedback. I'm on here Sunday nights at 10 o'clock. And my initial thought process was I'm on here for all the people who suffer from insomnia. So like Sunday night,
That too.
right?
Amen.
You can't sleep. You're going into, Monday. A lot of people hate Mondays. This is a great day to sort of reflect around this time, 10 o'clock. You're
Right.
reflecting. Hopefully, somebody that comes on the show can say something inspiring, drop a quote or a book. You go get it, you read it. But just to really inspire people to bet on themselves. And
Yeah.
speaking to that, that's a nice segue to where we go next in the show.
All right. Let's do it.
So bet on self. My father used to say, baby, bet on self. So those that didn't know, that are just tuning in, you're listening to Conversations with Coach Law live on the Urban Heat 98.1 FM. And yes, we are an iHeartRadio station. And I have
Hey.
a special guest, Deejay Daz-One. And tonight's segment is all about men need self-care too. So my father used to say, baby, bet on yourself. And I don't think it really dawned on me and hit me until he passed away. And I just started hearing that more and more in my head as I was just trying to navigate grief and, just stay in the game. And I didn't have that phone call anymore. So I started saying that mantra to myself, right? Like,
Right.
bet on yourself today, another day, just bet on yourself. And I got this bright idea to create a course called Bet on Self and help other people do the same thing my father used to encourage me to do. So Bet on Self has become both a mantra, mindset, and a lifestyle. And what it really is about how do you overcome adversity? How do you step out of your comfort zone? How do you make a decision to change your life despite what people told you about yourself or how you may have been perceived to be? But one day you wake up and you go, you know what? If not me, who? If not me, who? And if not now, when?
Right. I've heard that many times.
Tell me about some of your bet on self moments so far in life.
Oh goodness. I don't even know how far back I should go with this. I guess the first bet on self moment was when dad died, because I was like, dang, here I am, 13 and a half years old. My father's no longer living on earth. How am I going to navigate through this treacherous world and not drive my mother crazy? Because, being a single mother with no father, no male influence in the house can be, and I was not an easy child. I made it hard on her so many times, but I had to find a medium in myself where I could just continue to function, keep up my studies and stuff like that. So I gravitated towards athletics. I joined the track and field team. That's when I started actually learning how to write and stuff like that. Got into music. My first teachers were the X Clan. Big ups to Brother Jay and everyone who did the band Glorious music back in 89, 90, 91. Those are my first teachers. So through their music, I empowered myself to live a certain way from what I was listening to. So that was my first bet on self move, I guess you can say. It's like, here I am without a dad, not really no structure on where to go. So let me turn to some positive music that's saying something that I won't learn in schools or read about in the newspapers or whatever. And let's see what that does. And it began to structure my ins and outs and how to function. So I guess that was my first bet on self moment.
So it started really early on, and a lot of us, and if you're in the chat, you're listening. If music was something, I noticed that song, I'm gonna sound real cliche right now. The DJ saved my life. It's playing in my head, right? But where music was for a part of your healing, a part of you encouraging yourself, right? Like, I
Yeah,
don't know how many people have a song that's sort of that's what you put on when you gotta do something you're afraid to do, or if you feel sad, you throw on a certain song and it puts you in a better mood. So
yeah.
I definitely believe music has been a part of most of our lives.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and so that's dope that music has always been with you, even at that early age. So
Yep. Mm.
were there any other bet on self moments after that? So that's your earliest one, but I know just in the time we've known each other, you've done a lot of stuff that was brave and stepping
Yeah.
out your comfort zone.
Yeah. Another thing I never really talked about when I was in college, I joined a fraternity. Um, I knew the stories and myths of fraternities, but I was like, it can't be all that bad. And it really wasn't. But I joined it because all the fraternity brothers that were already in place looked like me. So it made it real easy for me to want to join this group of brothers and have a sense of belonging. And when I crossed over, it was just like the most amazing experience. And I still talk to most of those brothers to this day. We just catch up on old times and stuff like that. They all wish me well because my marriage is coming soon. Thank goodness for that.
We're
But that was another
gonna
bet on self.
talk about that next.
Yeah, I know. I know we are. But that was a bet on self moment because I'm also an only child, so I didn't have brothers and sisters to grow up with. So I'm always looking for brothers and sisters that I can vibe with and hang with and nurture from and nurture to. And that's where this fraternity came into place and the 10 brothers that I met during that time. So that was just another bet on self moment where I could just have a family outside of a family and see where it went. So yeah, there you have it.
You know,
If that answers the question.
no, but because you've had so many, and that's what happens when we've been here for a little bit. We almost a half a century, right? We got a lot
Yeah,
of live life. But I had considered joining a sorority, throughout life. So it takes a lot of courage to humble yourself to do that.
yeah.
That's definitely a
Yes.
bet on self moment because
Oh yeah.
you go through a lot of stuff joining a sorority or fraternity. So shout out to you. Now, what
Yes, you do.
can you tell us which one you're a part of?
Sigma Tau Omega. I went to Mount Ida College in Newton, Massachusetts, and that's the fraternity I joined. Sigma Tau Omega.
All right, all right. Shout out to everybody that went to Mount Ida. I know they closed the school down in a couple years back, but I know a lot of people who also attended Mount Ida. So shout out to all of the alumni out there that was over at Mount Ida. My first boyfriend went to Mount Ida.
Wait, really? What year?
I will not tell.
I just want to know the year. I don't. That's all.
Honestly, I'm thinking, okay, so 94, 90. He was
Because
there.
I went from 93 to 95 because it was a 2-year school back then when
So
I went.
he was definitely there
Okay.
because I graduated high school in 94.
Oh shoot. Would it be funny if I knew who you were? I'm not going to ask now. We
You
won't do
probably
that.
would. You probably would. Yep. You
Hey,
would.
small world.
Small
Hey.
world. Yep. But I spent Mount Ida's college.
But
So,
yeah.
okay. So you now took us through high school. We then went to college.
Yep.
Now we getting to be a grown. I'm saying a grown. I cannot say that. I don't know if I can say that. So I don't want to get.
Grown ass man.
I don't. Yeah, but I didn't say it. I don't think we can say that on the air. But you said it. I didn't. So he got to be
I said it.
a grown man. So what happened then? Any more?
Well, before we go into that, the word ass is in the dictionary. So that's technically an actual word.
I think I can say that. I've been asking.
Yeah.
Shout out to Marv Neal. The person that keeps it all together. I need a list of what I can and cannot say, Marv.
Yeah,
I don't want to.
he's the guy. After that, like dag, well, you said it in the beginning. I don't want to dwell on it too much, but being homeless was not easy. Um, and that was actually while I was in college because we won't go in that. Let's just say there was a time where I didn't have a place to actually live, but I ended up surviving that. I guess you could count that as a bet on self moment too in a lot of ways.
Let me tell you, college is hard.
Yeah.
For those of us that don't come from backgrounds with folks with money, college ain't easy. If y'all went to college and college was hard, college was hard. That's definitely a bet on self moment. A lot of people went to school out of state. And when you get out of state, you get a quick lesson on just betting on yourself. Real talk.
Hashtag Sally Mae was my best friend. Amen to Sally Mae. Wow, I
Anybody
don't even know where that.
took credit cards just to get some free lunches? I mean, we did a lot
Yep.
of stuff like that.
Oh yeah. Where do I go from there? It's just the challenges of just everyday life, having a job, living on your own, trying to figure out what a relationship is, because I've had many relationships leading up to the one that I'm in now, and they weren't all good. But I would also know from watching what men did wrong what to do right, if that makes any sense. Like, you ever watch the people that just do the wrong things and you absorb that and you be like, oh, well, that's what happened to you because you did that. I'm not going that route. Nope. So
Right.
I chose to go the opposite. So I've never put my hands on a woman. I've never cheated on a woman. I've never ever called a woman out her name. Tried my best not to. I'm not perfect. I've done it a few times, but those things happen. But I've learned all that from my mom, because she taught me the things like you have to say ma'am whenever you greet a woman if she's older than you. Look a person in their eye. And at first I was like, I gotta call you ma'am? Like, what? I ain't doing all that. But after a while, her teachings just stuck with me, and a few beatings at the same time. And I had just learned to just do it. Now it's nothing but a thing. Like, I'll be like, greetings, ma'am, or blessings, my sister. And you all hear me talk whenever I'm in the chats. That's what I always say to everybody. So that's the kind of the bet on self moments in this case is more or less just me learning how to adapt myself in a society that doesn't really appreciate the black man. And I wanted to just go a different route and try to do things differently where I can be proud of myself each and every day. And whoever comes into contact with me will see a positive reflection of what a man is supposed to be like, even though I'm still learning, even to this day as I grow.
So
That makes any sense.
shout out to all of the black men out there, because I definitely concur. Right. I think, and I say this often, to whom much is given, much is expected. And there's a lot on the shoulders of men. I'm not saying women don't have their thing too, but for the most part, I think a lot of men, because I have a son, are not necessarily given the tools to navigate the world. A lot of it is like they got to figure it out. And with
How old is your son?
he's 17.
Okay.
So,
yeah. So he's just beginning to live.
Yeah. And with the rise of, like you said, single parent households where a lot of women are doing it on their own, a woman can't teach a man how to be a man. We can influence, we can love, but when it comes down to it, like, who are the role models to teach men to be men, right? And then we say, hey, you need to provide, you need to provide, protect. You need to do all of these things, right? But how do you do that? How do you do all of that stuff if no one's taught you to do it? You learn it through music, through TV, watching other men, and some of those role models may not always be good.
Right.
So
everyday life too.
Yes.
Everyday life.
We all have to give space and extend grace that men are figuring it out too. And that's something my father told me. Like, one of the things I miss and love about my dad was his ability to talk about life, his trials, his tribulations, his mistakes, to apologize, to cry, to take accountability. Like, I thought that was really, really dope. By no means was my father perfect. I think that's one of the things I loved most about him was his imperfections and his ability to be vulnerable about it. So for what I see as masculinity is also vulnerability. What's your take on vulnerability?
I think vulnerability is like one of the coolest aspects of just the human race, period. Whether you're male, female, whether you speak English, not speak English. I'm not afraid to fail. Do I like failing? No one really enjoys failing. But in my profession as a DJ, I do a lot of weddings and corporate events and things like that. And I am so like hands on with everything that if I notice the one little thing, I get frustrated so badly because I don't want to make a bad impression on anyone. But half the time when the event's done and they say, how you doing? I'm like, oh, everything was great, but this and they're like, well, I didn't notice it. And I'm like, you didn't? But here I am being vulnerable enough to share it with strangers. And they're like, well, I think you did a great job. And I'm like, oh, all right, cool. I guess that wasn't so bad. So I guess over time, I didn't mind opening up that side of me because I mean, we fail every day. I mean, how many times have you throughout a day, how many times have you done something where you fell a little short, or you did this wrong, or you said this wrong, or you made the wrong step when you should have went right and instead of going left? I mean, we all have done these little things. So I mean, just be vulnerable about it. And who's to judge you? Because we all sin every day and we mess up. So
You know
yeah.
what's interesting is I do you think, let me phrase it as a question, and those in the chat can also answer this. Do you think that we are more critical of men? Do you think that we give you space to be vulnerable?
Some do. But then again, some don't. If you ask a traditional person, and I don't want to say traditional women because there are traditional men who hold up the male to a higher status anyway, but the majority of people who are traditionalists will think men aren't supposed to be this and men aren't supposed to be that. You got to be the strong person, and you can't be the weak person. But I'm like, wait, if you're vulnerable to show your emotion, doesn't that make you even stronger though? Like, right? Like if you continue to be this macho guy that nothing phases, everyone's going to see through that facade real easily. Just open up and say, you know what? This is how I'm feeling right now. I'm not at my best. I could use prayer. This is what's going on with me. Let me just give me a minute to unveil my baggage. And you never know, that person might have an answer for that. So yeah, just be open enough to just say, hey, this is what I'm going through right now. Do you have a moment? Let me express how I'm feeling. And yeah, just be honest and real with it though. That's all.
I've always admired that about you, but
Thank you.
do you think that that's typically how most guys behave? Because I don't think, in my experience, I think that sometimes that's a double-edged sword for a lot of the men I speak to, that their vulnerability, or at least they felt as though their vulnerability was used against them.
It happens. I mean, it's been used against me too, but I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not going to apologize for it. I am not afraid to put myself out there on Front Street, no matter how bad. Like, I will give a small example. With Kayla, there was a situation that happened a few years ago. I'm not going to put it all out there because this is not the time nor the place. But I know I messed up big time. And for anyone listening, it wasn't cheating. I didn't do that, but it was something very, very bad. And I didn't wait for her to find out from X, Y, and Z or third party or her girlfriends or her family members. I was like, you know what? Let me just tell you what happened. This is what I did. I hope you accept my apology for it. I'd rather you hear it from me than hear it from someone else. And that's how I am in any situation. You and I have had talks where we didn't always see eye to eye. And instead of you hearing it from this person or that person, I'd rather come to you myself and say, hey, coach, I apologize for X, Y, and Z. This is what I did. I wasn't the right thing to do, but I'm sharing it with you because I'd rather you hear it from me than hear it from somewhere else. And the story gets all twisted up and then it turns into even something bigger than it didn't need to be. So, yeah.
I always feel like there is some gems, right, in being able to do that. But then there's also some risk.
Yeah.
Right? So when we come to people and we expose ourselves like that, oftentimes it's very uncomfortable, right? So I think that's for men and women, is being in a place of admitting wrongdoing or taking accountability for something is not what you want to do. And some people feel as though at that point I'm allowing myself to be weak. Like I'm giving you the upper hand on me at this point. And strength, you know, a lot of men is like, listen, I don't apologize. I said what I said. It was what I said it was, and don't question me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I could speak on that too. I have spoken many times about my personal life, and it has bit me in the booty a few times. Pause. So, yeah, but I'm an open Aquarius. I loved if it's honest and I can relate to the subject, I'm going to talk about it. Sometimes I may say too much, but I'm just talking about me. But yeah, it's come to haunt me a few times. We don't need to go into that.
Yes.
But
so
yeah.
has it stopped you from being vulnerable? Do you think twice about it now?
Yeah, I do. I mean, my first instinct is to always just shoot from the hip and be like, this is me. But I understand that not everyone needs to know everything. So I try not to say everything because there are people who do not always have your best interest at heart and will use that against you. And I'm in the public eye, so I got to be mindful of that because there are people out there who will just have ill intentions. So, yeah, I've learned not to, I've toned it down a bit. I've toned it down a bit. Yes, ma'am. You're laughing because you know a lot of it. That's why.
Well, and I think we all, and again, all those that are listening, and you're in the chat, you can definitely chime in. I see you guys are having a great conversation, and then you guys are listening to the Urban Heat 98.1 FM. I am your host, Coach Law. This is Conversations with Coach Law. It comes on every Sunday at 10 p.m. And we have my special guest, Daz-One, and we're talking about men needing self-care. And what I want to do is, so I've always liked to tie it all in so this can make sense.
Mhm.
Everything we're talking about in this moment is a form of self-care.
Right.
Right? Being vulnerable, speaking your truth, naming your feelings,
Yep.
being able to admit when you're wrong, and to allow people to help you or to expose yourself about feeling like you didn't do something right. All
Mhm.
these things are needed, because if we
Yeah.
can't
Oh,
do
yeah.
this, what we know from therapy is that we then repress it. And oftentimes when there's no space to say, hey, I'm having a hard day, or I'm feeling down, I'm depressed, or I'm afraid to make a mistake, or then you have other behaviors, lying, deceit,
Mm. Mm.
feelings of depression, anxiety. It goes somewhere. It doesn't just disappear. It
Oh,
just
no.
goes someplace else. So
Mhm.
in your life, have you always been this forthcoming with your feelings? Or
Yeah.
did you have to learn?
Always. Always. Again, I think I think I've been that way so much that I do it to a fault that I have to just tone back and not do it. But that's what I'm so accustomed to doing because that's what my parents always did. They weren't afraid to say, "Yep, we messed up. This is how we did it." Learn, your mom and dad always say, "Learn from our mistakes. Don't be like us." So I try not to be like them. But the one thing that they do that they've done that I always do is I just put myself out there and whatever happens happens. I just don't have no filter in that sense. But
Mm,
yeah, it has haunted me quite a bit. So I have to learn discernment and not to do that in certain situations. Again, not everyone needs to know everything you're doing. So I try not to just put that out there. Certain things in my life that I just don't need to do. Now publicly, DJing here, performing here, I'm gonna let you know all that, but I don't really try not to put my social life on social media anymore. I'm trying not to.
I'm so glad that you're bringing this stuff up, because for one, it's called boundaries, right? And a lot of times we don't. I know for me, I don't think. Trying to think back, I think as I got older, my mom might have used the word boundary,
Hmm.
but a lot of adults at this age, our age, are talking about boundaries. It's all over social media, like your boundaries, and most of the boundaries are with self. So
Yes.
being able to have discernment and decide what you want to share, what you don't want to share, is a
Mhm.
self boundary more than anything else, right? Like,
Right.
we also call that self disclosure. So what do I want you to know about me?
Right.
This is
I
what
want you to. Oh, I thought you was asking what you wanted to know. I was about to say all that, but yeah.
But that's what, when we're posting that stuff, it's like, do I want people to know this? And a lot of people get upset, oh, well, um, someone's commenting or not commenting. But once you put it out into social media land, you
It's there.
you lose control over it. Even if you delete
Mhm.
it, somebody might have already screenshot it, and
Yep.
they're
Oh
already
yeah.
talking about it. So this is
Uh-huh.
why I advocate for people to have a therapist. A lot of people like, oh, I don't want to go to therapy. But if you're on social media and you are using it as your real-time diary, because to a certain extent, Facebook, for instance, when you put your status up, it's like a diary almost, right? Like,
Yeah.
you are literally telling the world what you're thinking about in the moment, or what you've seen that you liked. And
Right.
if you did have a therapist, imagine you would have somebody to go bring some of these thoughts to, these random
Hmm.
thoughts, where everybody else doesn't have to see it, potentially screenshot it, reshare it, comment on it where you had a chance to process it or you self-disclose. This is why I tell people to go to therapy. It's not necessarily because something's wrong with you, but everybody got something on their mind. Everybody got something that's bothering them.
Right. I'm looking at the comments right now as we're talking. So shout out to Ray Royale. I see Rosie up here, Isabel. Blessing to everyone that's here right now, tuned in. God bless you.
Yes, thank you for tuning in, y'all. So if you've used Facebook as your diary, as your journal, I'm gonna be guilty. Say me. You can put me in the chat.
That should be everybody.
Listen, if you've used Facebook as your diary, as it's okay, right? We all do. It's like our own daily news to a certain extent, right? We actually help them, and we're helping them right now because I'm live on Facebook as we speak, right? Helping them keep their numbers. So what has helped you change that to pull back?
Growth, experiences, the results of certain things, just those three things in that order: growth, getting older, more maturity, hand in hand, seeing what past incidents of me opening up too much has done and the dangers of it all. So, and just, learn not to do it again. Because if you didn't like the first time, if you didn't like the first result, why would you continue to do the same thing where, more bad results could be the end all be all? So yeah, I'm good with all that. So yeah, those things, but growth, just the growth of doing wiser things as you get older, and we'll never get it right. We'll be on our deathbed still making mistakes. So we just gotta do the best that we can with the knowledge that we have. And at the end of the day, we had to just be accepted. We just have to be okay with what we did and what we brought to the table. Because at the end of the day, you're your own worst critic, competition, however you want to word that. So yeah,
all very, very true. I have this affirmation that I love, and it says, I am human, therefore I make mistakes, and I can choose to see them as lessons.
Right.
Say that again.
Facts.
I am human, therefore I make mistakes, and I can choose to see them as lessons. And I think, that's where the grace is. And I think as we think about men needing self-care, how can we collectively as a community extend more grace and self-compassion to men, right? Because sometimes I think there's not a lot of space for men to mess up, or at least I think some men don't even give themselves the space to mess up. Like you need to be on point all the time, and I think that contributes, at least to the clients that I do serve, to their stress, their anxiety, and feelings of depression. Is if they're not providing, then they don't feel like they have value. What's your thoughts on that?
Oh boy. I will say this about I'll speak on the brothers that are in my circle. If I get a call from one of them and say, hey, you got a few moments, I'm really going through something right now, I'm like, yeah, sure. No matter where I'm at, whether I'm at work, in the studio, where at home, I will just move away from whoever's around me, get into a private space and say, I'm here. What do you need? And then let them just say whatever. They're not asking for advice. They just want to vent out what it is they're going through. And after they're done, I'll say, do you mind if I rebuttal this or that? And they'll be like, sure. And then usually I do. And then they appreciate it. And that's the thing. So I guess to answer that question is be there for your brothers. Be there. And because you never know what someone is going through, because I can count on all 10 fingers and 10 toes how many times I've reached out to one of my brothers and said, this is what's happening. And this could be a daily thing where I call them 3-4 times a week just to unveil all of the baggage that Daz is going through. If I can't do that in return for someone else, I'm a hypocrite. I can't do that. So I gotta be there for my brothers, because you could prevent that person from doing something very bad. So I gotta be there for them. And I feel good knowing that I could be there for my peoples, because I think that's like the greatest thing. And that's another bet on self moment if you want to add to that. It's like I'm being that friend, that brother, that's someone that you're putting your trust in to open up stuff to me that you would not say publicly. I keep that to myself too. I never be like, "Hey, Coach Lott, did you just hear X, Y, and Z? This is what he just came." If I did that, then I'd be like, "Dad, what kind of friend am I? If I'm putting this man's business out there after he just confided in me, uh, I can't do that." So that's
Yeah.
one way of me giving back, I guess you can say. And yeah, I think that's a great way of looking at it. Like, be there for your brothers, be there for your sisters, because you never know what someone is going through, and you just may be that person that saves them from. Well, you figure that out for yourself.
Well, I think you make some valid points, and circling back to the idea of value, right? We
Yeah.
talk a lot about self-love and know your worth when it comes to women. Like, often those posts are associated with a woman, don't settle, make sure you know your worth. But I think that relates to men too. Like, I think men got to know their worth too. I think
Oh
we got
yeah.
to talk about, how does a man know that he loves himself? Like, what does that look like for a man? Because I know what they say for women, but I often wonder if some of the things that we've sort of accepted or normalized for men, is that really a reflection of self-love for a man?
Uh wow. I will this is a great I'm glad you asked this question because this will segue into my clothing line. Um as you can see, it says Melanin King on this. This is part of the clothing line right here. Um and this, I guess you could say this is words of affirmation at the same time. I created Concrete Royalty because I got tired of just seeing shirts and sweatshirts and images of drug paraphernalia, violence, gang life, pimps and prostitutes and that type. Like, that's not what we are. At least that's not what I am. I've never been none of that. So I and Akela wanted to create a clothing line that positively spoke on the narrative of who we are as kings and queens. So Melanin King, Black Excellence, what melanin influences everything. These are just some of the things we put on our merchandise. So when you wear it, it's like a how can I say, like a boost of positive energy to go out into the world and say, you may say this, you may call us the N word and killers and thugs and everything, but when I go outside my home and step into my car, I'm a Melanin King.
Yes, yes.
You know what I'm saying? It's just like, that's the answer to that. So society says one thing, but I say another thing. So what would you rather be, a melanin Negro or the N word? Or would you feel proudly being a melanin king? Or would you, or as a queen, would you be like, I'm a melanin B word? Or would you rather wear something that says melanin queen and feel proud about it because that's what you are? That's what you were born as. That's what you're going to die as. If
Right.
that makes sense.
Hmm. So what I'm hearing you say is that self-love is something that you have to constantly sort of remind yourself of by the things you
Yeah.
engage in and experiences and the people you keep around you.
Right. I'll even say it like this. It's like, people who are the opposite, like racist people and everything, will remind you, will do things to negatively remind you of just how dope you actually are. Like, for those that saw the Straight Outta Compton movie, the scene where they bought all of the albums and then put them outside, and then a steamroller ran over the physical product. They didn't get mad. They was like, all right, that's how you feel, great, but let's keep one thing in mind: you had to buy those CDs first before you ran them over, so we still got paid from it. So they were shook. They're like, dang, we can't really say nothing because, yeah, we did have to buy these first before we ran them over. So yeah, what are we gonna do, fight negativity with negativity? Now we're gonna take the high road and show you a different route, to also disband the myth that we're killers and not negative minded people and all that stuff. Like, keep this in mind too. I don't like to speak politically too much, but let's talk about when they ransacked the Capitol building. It wasn't black people who did that.
Right.
We were at home watching, at home laughing at how dumb y'all are for doing something stupid.
Mhm.
So
Well,
are we really the bad people?
all of these are some really good questions. And I think, again, me being a single mother raising a young Black man and being
Yeah.
mindful of what I say to him, how I say things to him, but also not coddling him and also saying, hey, you're going to make mistakes, own your mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes, calling him out on things. I think, one of the things that happened with my own son was a shift in this focus on him, like being hypersexual, having a date, have a girlfriend early, do all these different things. A lot of men
Yeah.
in my life who've had children early are like, listen, bro, wait, focus on ball, focus on school, which I
Yeah.
think is the narrative shift from
Hmm.
what I heard when I was coming up. It was like, how many girlfriends you got? Get some more girlfriends. Like, like, why didn't see you bring any girls to the house? Like, it just seemed like there has been a shift in how we are talking about masculinity.
Hmm.
Would you agree that there's been sort of a shift in that, or do you think some of those that same message is still very prevalent?
I think it shifted a little bit. It's funny you brought up the. It reminds me of the movie The Wood, where they were young and they were at the school dance party, and there was like, all right, we're gonna have a contest who can get the most numbers. That
Mhm.
used to be me. I always lost, by the way. I'm not the super dope fine gentleman that you see now. I was a nappy headed, skinny, 80-pound Jackson 5 wannabe with a big afro that had no game whatsoever. But I would attempt to try it anyway because it helped me gain confidence, even though I lost. But yes, I'm putting myself out there, people. You can laugh at that.
We're gonna
But
talk
as you
about that
got
too, because men do. Another gentleman told me men are used to rejection. It's part of the whole rites of passage.
right.
Versus women, we just sit back and wait for y'all to holler. We don't really have to deal with rejection.
Now, see, we'll get into that too, because that's a setup for the brothers, but we'll ignore that part. What was I going to say? But as I got older, I realized, like, I put more attention into the music I was making because I was actually a recording artist. I was putting out albums. I put my focus more to that. I knew the girls and all that were going to be there. But even when I was on stage and I would get off stage, people were like, yo, this girl over there really wants to meet you. I'm like, all right, cool. I'll go over to her, engage in conversation. And the first thing that I usually said was, are you trying to get to know me because you want to get to know who I am, or you just like me because of what it is I am? And after that, they'd be like, oh, okay, I guess I just was in love with the fact that you was on stage. I'm like, yeah, it's not going to work. Get to know me
And I
away
can
from the stage.
so hear you saying that at your even
I
at
would. I
and
said it then.
so hear you say,
I said it then.
yeah.
Get to know me because I'm not just the person on stage or the person behind the turntables or the person doing radio. Like, once I put the headphones down and turn the turntables off, I'm just regular Daz again.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So, like, get to know me, like, learn the things that I love. You'd be surprised about some of the things that I actually like as just regular old Daz, and Daz-One is totally, we're two different people. So I don't really live that persona. So I was focused on the music. And then as I got older, I was focused on my companies, and now about to get married, I'm focusing on how I've been the boyfriend. Now I'm the fiance. Now I'm about to be a husband. I'm trying to be the best in all three of those phases that I can be. Does that mean I'm perfect every day? No. Do I mess up? All the time. Do I do things wrong? All the time. Do I show the right emotions? No, I do not. But I learn, and eventually I will be satisfied when it's all said and done. I look back on it. I'll say, you know what, job well done, because I did on my own terms. I learned from, I had great influences, whether they were positive or negative, and I just want my Lord and Savior to be pleased with me when it's Judgment Day, because I want to go to heaven, because I'm ready to party when I get up there. So, indeed.
Well,
Uh,
we got a question from one of the listeners, and she wanted to know. Thank you for the question, Miss Regina, the mindfulnista. She wants to know, how did you come up with the name Concrete Royalty?
This is all Akela, but
Kayla is his fiance, everyone.
yes, Akela is,
Shout out
you all
to
know,
Kayla.
most of y'all know who Akela is. You've heard me talk
Well, the
about her so
listeners
many
don't
times.
know. The listeners don't know. Remember, we're live right now on the Urban Heat on iHeartRadio, and folks don't know you. So you keep saying
Okay,
Akela, they might like, who's Akela? So
okay,
everybody, I thought he says it like everybody knows Akela, which sort of kind of we do. If you
yeah,
follow him on social media, then you know who Akela is. But
I
that
will.
is
You know
his
what?
fiance.
I'm going to talk about how Concrete Royalty came, and then I'll tell you the story about how me and her met and how we got to August 12th, 2023. We'll get to that.
Yes, we
So
got
Concrete
9 minutes too,
Royalty.
just so you know.
So Concrete Royalty, the book that Tupac wrote, the rose that grew from the concrete, was basically how Akela came up with the name, because she's like, okay, look, the majority of us come from the concrete bricks, which is the hood, the low come environments. But in each, in that setting, there's always a person who gives off pearls of wisdom, or is that rose amongst the concrete, et cetera, et cetera. So she's like, you know what? We're all from the concrete jungle, but we're all royalty at the same time, and that's basically how the name came. So kudos to Akela for coming up with the name.
Makes a lot of sense
Um,
to me.
okay, so Isabel's like meeting you for the first time. Who is Akela? So, while I was living in Boston, this was around 2019. I was working at Logan Airport at the time. I was part of a singles group from singles all over the world, and a question came up that Akela answered. I forgot what that question was. It was just a general question, but she responded, and I was just looking at the picture, and I'm like, "Oh, who is this?" And I'm entering her inbox right now, like she is on, like, good Lord have mercy. So I entered her inbox. I was just, being a gentleman. Hello, my name is Daz. I am originally from Brooklyn, New York, currently living in Boston. I am, man, how old was I then? This was what, 4 years ago? So I was 42. No, I was more, I was 44 at the time, actually. And I was like, am I interested in this and this and this? I think you're a very attractive woman. If you do have a few moments, please respond back. And she
Got
did.
his shot,
And
y'all.
oh,
Slide,
Lord. So
slid
she
in the D-
responded back, and we did the Facebook thing for a while, and then I boldly asked for her phone number, and we ended up texting first because she wasn't ready to have a full out conversation just yet. But when we did, our first conversation was about football for 3 hours. After that conversation, I'm like, I'm sold. I'm good. Okay. So then months later into the new year in 2019, um, I was like, I'd like to come out to Kansas City to visit. And I still have the pictures that the first visit that we took, I still have those pictures to this day, still have them. And I went home after that 4 days. I went home back to Boston. I'm like, all right, I'm in a long distance relationship now. And I remember saying to her a week after I had gotten back, I was like, if you give me a year and some change, I will be moving to Kansas City by September of 2020. I ended up getting there in July of 2020, and I've been here ever since.
Mm,
And now we're getting married in August. So
yeah,
there's the story.
I got invited to the wedding, y'all. So
Yep.
I guess I'll
Yep.
be at a
So
wedding.
so that's the story, ladies and gentlemen, of how Akela and I met. And the relationship are some challenges. She's an introvert. I'm an extrovert. But somehow we make it work every day. And yeah, she's the reason why I'm here. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Akela.
Oh, such a beautiful love story. Black love. I told you guys that we would talk about moving because he moved from Boston, as you heard. We would
Yep.
talk about all of his bet on self moments, get a sense of what self love look like, what looks like, and masculinity looks like from a male perspective. Every second Sunday of the month, I will have another male guest on my show to talk about men needing self-care too, to shed some light on how men think, how they feel. I just want to continuously encourage people, especially men, to be vulnerable, and for women to see men in a different light. There's a lot of gender stuff going on, men against women, and us not being able to come together, and a lot of trust issues. Just it's a lot of stuff around
Yeah.
love and around relationships. So many people want a relationship, right? But don't really know how to get one or stay in one. So I
Right.
hope that these segments, because on the second Sunday is about the men, and on the fourth Sunday it'll be about women, that hopefully men can learn some things about how women think, and women can learn some things about how men think, so that we can all shift our perspectives
Yeah.
around the different genders. And hopefully, this might help you, go and hug your husband or your wife or your boyfriend or your girlfriend, or give that brother that you didn't want to give a chance, that maybe you saw as being too vulnerable, or the nice guy, that maybe we can shift some of your perspectives about the opposite gender.
I
All
love Rosie. Her comments are so cool. I love
right,
Rosie.
Rosie. So once again, let me give some shout outs. We got Isabella on here. We got Rosie. Hey, Hector. What's going on, Hector? Shout
Brother Heck, what up, though?
Tamara, thank you for tuning in. You guys are just awesome. Shout out to everybody who's tuning in from YouTube, from Facebook. We appreciate you. Everyone, go download the iHeartRadio app. Make sure you follow the Urban Heat. It's good for us. Give us some stars. Give us some hearts. If you love this show and you like this show, please let us know. They want me to do a 2-hour show. I haven't convinced myself that I want to be on for 2 hours. But you're tuned into the Urban Heat 98.1 FM. We are radio with a purpose, and we're impacting the communities all around Boston and beyond. We got like 3 minutes left, Daz, to chop.
Okay. All right.
Any closing thoughts? Anything you want the people to know, how they can find you, all that good stuff?
Okay. Instagram, Deejay Daz-One. No. Instagram, Deejay Daz-One, DEEJAY period, DAZ period, ONE. Had to do a new page because I got hacked by some idiot from Africa. God bless him, though. Concrete Royalty, Rap Sheet Podcast. I will put all this in the box before we end. But
And it's
I
strolling
just want to
down
say,
at the bottom of the screen, guys.
yeah, I'm gonna do that as we speak. I'm typing and talking at the same time. But I want to say thank you for allowing me to be here. I am rarely on the opposite side of a microphone. I'm always hosting something. So to be a guest for a change is fabulous. I want to do this again. So everyone that got a radio show, make me a guest just so I could talk more. Let's do that. I just want people to, Martin Luther King weekend is coming up. Well, it's already Martin Luther King weekend, but Martin Luther King Day is coming up. And I was trying to find my favorite Martin Luther King's quote, and I found it. And this I want this on my tombstone when it's my time to leave this earth. The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands in times of challenge and controversy. That's me.
What a wonderful way to close out this episode. I mean, given that we are saluting, and shout out to everyone that's been a part of the Embrace here in Boston. If you haven't checked it out, a monumental moment in history for Bostonians. Shout out to Amari Jeffries, Greg Ball.
Greg Ball.
Yep. All of you guys, over at the Embrace Boston team. They're doing their gala tonight. So shout out to everyone that's involved with that. And for those that are not working tomorrow and taking a break, reflect on your goals, reflect on what you want to do. How can you add more value and impact the world? And most importantly, have some conversations about diversity and inclusion. Have some conversations about how you can shift the narrative or change the culture, the dynamics, either in your home or in your communities or at your workplaces. You've been listening to Conversations with Coach La.
Can I just say one more thing?
And I'm your host, Coach La. And we got one more comment from Daz, and we're going to be wrapping up.
I want to say this. Rosie, my birthday's coming up. New edition tickets. Make that happen. Just kidding.
Shameless plugs. We got to love it. But this has been a phenomenal night. I really appreciate you, Daz, coming on and having this conversation with me. You guys, please go follow him on all of his social media platforms. He's put it in the chat, streaming at the bottom. He is very approachable. Go buy a shirt. You need to make a code to put in here for later so people can go shop on your store for
when you go on the website, if you put your email in, you get 10% off your next purchase. There you go.
Oh, there you go. Look at that. So guys, did you hear that? You get 10% off your purchase. Just go ahead and put that inside of the chat, or when you order.
When you go on the site, it'll ask you for your email address. You put that in and you'll get 10% off your next purchase.
There you go. Awesome.
All right.
All right, guys. So it's been a great night. We'll see you soon. Want everybody to have a blessed weekend. Stay safe and keep having those awesome conversations. And I'll see you guys not next week, but the week after. I'm away next weekend. So,
all right.
Good night. Bye.
Bye-bye.